Hey everybody, Damon Gettier, Damon Gettier & Associates Realtors. Today we're talking about the 8 home buying secrets that you need to know broken down. I have been selling houses in this market for 20 plus years, and I've sold literally thousands upon thousands of houses. And in this series, we talk about you ask questions, we answer. We're trying to educate you, give you the information so that you know what's happening before you ever get to the point of signing an agreement on the house, signing a contract, buying a house. So one of the first things you want to do, if you can get your real estate agent to give you copies of paperwork before you ever sit down to write a contract so that you can review it and know it, you're going to be far better off. And so the residential property disclosure, mandated by law, you have to have it on everything. The only 2 times you don't have to have residential property disclosure are on an inherited house because that owner didn't necessarily know anything about that house, and on new construction. New construction, you get a 1-year home warranty, so you don't get a residential property disclosure, you get a 1-year home warranty. But outside of that, when you purchase a house, you should have a residential property disclosure. Virginia is a caveat emptor state. Buyer beware, which basically means that the residential property disclosure is a misnamed document. The reason I say it's misnamed, I just looked it up, and there's 17 items on there, and all 17 items it says the seller makes no representation, which means it is not a disclosure, it's a disclaimer. If you visit that site, you can just Google the form, get it from your agent, get it from one of our agents. If you just Google Virginia residential property disclosure, it'll pop up on the web, it'll give you that act. And when you do that, what you're gonna find out is that there's 17 items on there, and all of them it says the seller doesn't represent. So it is a buyer beware. You need to do your due diligence. And what I tell people all the time is if you care about it, you need to ask about it and investigate it. If you wonder where the lot lines are, you need to ask, inquire, verify. And how we verify stuff like lot lines and whatnot is with surveys. There is no disclosure in Virginia where someone has to tell you anything. The seller doesn't have to tell you anything. If you want to know, you need to ask and you need to verify. Please always be careful of that. Don't assume someone's going to tell you, oh, the house caught on fire. Stuff like that is important to you. You need to ask those questions. The second thing is the seller is not required to disclose material defects. Now, I as a real estate agent, if I represent a seller, I must tell you about material defects that I know about. The buyer's agent, your agent representing you, they have to tell you about material defects that they know about. But there's a couple things. One, they're not under any obligation to discover those facts. They don't have to go seek those out. They don't have to go look for a problem on the property. They have no obligation to seek those defects out, and they have no obligation to tell you about anything they didn't know. And so there's a lot of things. I'm trying to think. The house floods every time there's heavy rain. If the agent doesn't know it, the agent can't disclose it. The seller does not have to disclose it. A lot of people think, oh, the seller has to tell me. The seller knew. The seller doesn't have to tell. You have to investigate and find out. And so it's really important that you do your due diligence so that you know. In our contract, a couple of things that are really key to know is that cosmetic issues are not considered material defects. And so peeling paint, dented vinyl, aluminum siding that's got dents in it. I saw this morning in one of our house listings that we had, someone been really rough on the aluminum trim around the window. It's not a defect, it's cosmetic. You might not like it, you might want to fix it, you might want to paint it, you might want to replace it, but that's not a material defect. Matters of preference are not material defects. A matter of preference would be, I don't know why they didn't put 30-year architectural shingles. Everybody I know puts 30-year architectural shingles. They put 20-year shingles on there. Might not be like how we would do it, might not be like how we would want it done, but that's not a material defects. In regard to our contract, a couple things that you need to know also is that because something's beyond its useful life does not mean it's a defect. So if you have an HVAC, and let's just say the HVAC's useful life is 20 years and it's 25 years old and still running, that is not a material defect under our contract. That would be something that you would want to know on an inspection. You would want to budget because that's probably going to have to be replaced really, really soon. But it is not in itself a defect if it's still running as it's supposed to run. A roof that is 21 years old and it's a 20-year roof, that is not a defect. If it's not leaking, it is not a defect. You want to know that. You want to budget to replace that. You might not want to put an offer on a house that has a 21-year-old roof, but it's in itself not a defect. When you're writing an offer, you need to have candid conversations with your agents. What's acceptable to you, what's not. What your appetite for risk is, what your appetite for fixing stuff. If you're on a really strict budget, let's just say that you're approved for $300,000 and $300,000, that's the tippy tippy top of your budget, that's it, then you don't want to buy a house that has systems that are beyond its useful life. Because if you can't afford to do the repairs, should they pop up, a roof could be anywhere from $5, $6, $7 to $15,000. If you can't afford to replace an HVAC for $8, $9, $10, $12,000, don't buy a house that has one that's at the end of its useful life, because you're setting yourself up for failure. And you need to have these conversations with your agent. And you can go look at the roof and be like, the roof looks good, the roof looks bad, the roof showing signs of age. If you look at the HVAC, the date's usually on them. If you see an HVAC's 10, 15, 20 years old, you know it's past half its life. It's on the downward swing. Might not be the house for you. Make those considerations when you're looking at a house or when you're negotiating a house. Later in this series, we'll talk about home warranties. And early on, when I sold houses, my pitch used to be on home warranties. Used to be, they cost a lot, they don't cover much, they have a high deductible. And then probably wasn't the best sales pitch ever. And it's not really a sales pitch, it's I didn't believe in them early on. And then I sold a really good friend of mine named Paul, sold him a house, and it's one of those sales that doesn't go as planned. The house wasn't very clean when they moved in. They didn't fix stuff on the home inspection like they said they were on the way in. And so we negotiated a home warranty. Well, lo and behold, both of his HVACs went out within the first month. I do believe in home warranties, and I believe in home warranties now for two reasons. One, when you buy a house, that house has been used in a specific way for a period of time. And when you move in and start using that house in a different way, you make the HVAC hotter, you cooler in the summer, you like it 67 degrees, the old owner liked it 75. You're putting different stresses on systems than they were used to, and that's when they will tend to break. And of course, when you purchase a home, you don't want to make any repairs, and then you do purchase a home and stuff goes wrong and you feel hurt and damaged. The home warranty helps to ease that pain. It's not a fix to all causes, but it does help to ease that pain. And we oftentimes see sellers or purchasers really, really happy that they decide to purchase a home warranty. I would say more often than not, in the first year, the home warranties do get used, and so we do suggest them to purchasers now. So number 3 on our list is your lead-based paint disclosure. Again, it's more of a disclaimer than a disclosure. The seller is not obligated to disclose what he knows unless he has reports. On this, virtually any house built before 1978, before January 1st, 1978, has lead-based paint in it. Lead-based paint is perfectly safe in its protected form. As long as it's not sanded or flaking where a child's going to eat it, then it's perfectly safe. So lead-based paint is particularly harmful to children if they inhale dust from it or if they eat the chips. A lot of times kids, when they're teething, will chew on like windowsills that are in older houses. They can ingest lead-based paint then, and that is harmful to them. Sanding lead-based paint is probably the most dangerous form. The house is being remodeled and you're going in there sanding because you're ingesting the fumes, the lead fumes, and getting them into your lungs. That is probably the most harmful of the lead-based paint. Again, if it's intact, if it's painted, like every house built before January 1st, 78, it's okay. A lot of times we just tell people, like, if you're concerned, paint it. If you have a paint on it, it's encapsulated. It's trapped under that layer of paint in between, perfectly safe. One key thing to know about the lead-based paint form is that the purchaser cannot sign that form, that disclosure, before the seller does. And the reason they can't is the seller's required to, if they have reports, to provide them. Well, how can you provide a report and say you do or don't have a report when the buyer signs it first? And a lot of times back in the day, we used to see people, buyer's agents, send across lead-based paint disclosures that were already signed by a purchaser, but the seller hadn't disclosed anything yet. So the seller is required to sign the disclosure first, saying, yes, I do have reports. No, I don't have reports. Here are the reports if I do have them. If I don't have them, here's a disclosure I don't. And then the purchaser cannot sign before the seller does on the lead-based paint disclosure. Number 4 is that the seller is not required to disclose anything about the property that may or may not be a risk to the purchaser's health. And a lot of people think that goes against reason, but it's the state law. Okay, if you know that, if the seller knows the septic fields failed and it's got raw sewage coming to the surface, they don't have to disclose that. If there's a meth house next door, the seller does not have to disclose that. The seller's agent doesn't have to disclose that. The buyer's agent would have to disclose it if they know it, but the seller's agent's not required to disclose that. If there's mold, mildew in the house, the seller does not have to disclose that. If the agent knew it, the agent does, but the seller doesn't have to. A lot of times houses close. We have a successful transaction, house closed, then stuff stuff starts to happen. They find mold, somebody gets sick and they find out there's black mold in the house. And then all the neighbors are, oh, well, Johnny knew that. Johnny told us this. Johnny doesn't have to disclose. That's why we always tell everybody, get a home inspection. Get a home inspection from a good, competent home inspector so that you have some faith and assurances that this house is safe. It is built correctly. It is a healthy environment for you to raise your family. Number 5, relying on government information might or might not be the most advantageous for you. Let me give you an example. We hear people all the time say, well, I went on GIS and GIS said, can't take GIS to court, y'all. Cannot take GIS to court. GIS lines are about. We have many people say, well, I went on GIS and it says the property line's there. Well, congratulations. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. We have seen acreages off by as much as 50% from what GIS showed to what it actually was when a survey was done. GIS, they plot lines from in the air. It could be off feet. It could be off 10 feet. It could be off a foot. It could be off 100 feet. Depends on how large the parcel is. A lot of times you'll see a parcel on GIS that part of the line appears to go through a house or someone else's house. That may be correct, may not be correct. You know, when in doubt, you pay for someone to do an inspection for you. Surveys, like I would never go by GIS lot lines. I would always go by a private survey that you pay for. That way, when something goes south, you have someone coming to speak on your behalf. You have paperwork that's not GIS, and the GIS is just not a reputable source of information. Number 6, relying on the MLS. A lot of people say, well, the MLS said. Humans put that information in, everybody. Sometimes it's right, sometimes it's wrong. Example being, I saw somebody yesterday listed a house with the garage with no parking spaces. Would we rely on the fact that there's no parking spaces? No, there's parking spaces there. That information in the MLS is deemed reliable, but you still need to check it because human beings put it in, it's not always correct. Do your due diligence. If you care about it, ask about it and verify. I don't know how many times I've said that in my career, but if you care about it, ask about it and verify. Number 7. And number 7 should be number 1, probably. And that is, all lenders are not created equal. If we sold thousands and thousands of houses, and I tell people all the time, there's no secrets to getting loans. There's no secrets to getting money. Just so everybody knows, all lenders get money from the same place. They get it from the federal government. That's where all the money comes from the federal government. So everybody pays the same amount for money, and everybody gets money from the same place. And so within reason, all the loans are comparable. All these mortgage companies shop each other every single day. They actually have websites that they go on and they shop each other every single day. They know down to the 0.1% what all the competitors are charging for money. Not only do they know what the money costs, but they know what the fees are involved. When you get a loan, you're gonna pay the man one way or another. You're gonna pay in fees or you're gonna pay in interest. The lender's gonna get their money. It's either gonna come in fees and what they charge you to get the money or an interest rate. That being said, use a local lender. I'm gonna go one step further. Use a competent local lender. The most expensive thing you can do is use a non-competent, not good, not local lender. And the reason is this: put a contract on your house, you put your EMD down, you put your deposit down. Then you get your inspections, and your inspections could cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. Okay, not hundreds of thousands, but hundreds or thousands of dollars. You do a home inspection, you do a septic inspection, you do a radon inspection. Maybe you found something, you did some mold inspections, you sit there, you get a survey done, you pay the lawyer to research the title, research the deed, get ready to close, and then your lender screwed something up and now you're not closing. Well, you've spent thousands of dollars and you're not closing. The other thing is, I'll go back to a long time ago, I sold an IRS agent a house, and the IRS agent, they wanted to use their lender from back where they came from in Tennessee. They moved here and were sitting at the closing table. We'd written up the contract. I'd asked the lender how much closing costs we need. The lender told me, hey, you need whatever, 5,000 closing costs. Asked for 5,000 closing costs. Get to the closing table, they needed $10,000. They were very surprised, very upset. They looked at me and they're like, hey, you said 5,000. I'm like, she said 5,000. I just relayed what she said. And she said, well, that's the closing cost. That's not the cost to close. Because she had her fees on top of that aren't considered closing costs, and the down payment. She hadn't included the down payment. Why could she do that? Because she wasn't a local lender. You need a local lender. And I use the choke rule. If they're not close enough in town that I can go choke them if they mess up, we shouldn't be using them. Money's gonna cost the same. The loan programs are the same. Use somebody local to do your loan. You want someone here that has a vested interest. You want someone here that knows that they're not gonna get any more business from us if they mess up your loan. That's who you want to use to get your loan. You don't want to put that out there in faith. Lender could care less. They do not care. It's not their house. They're never going to see the consumer again. They're never going to see my real estate agent again. They're never going to see me again. They don't care. Not their house. Use a local lender, someone that cares about you, that cares about your referrals, that cares about your repeat business. You know, you sending them business. Use that lender to close your loan. Number 8, finally, not all real estate agents are created equal. It takes 90 hours of education to get your real estate license. 90 hours. So less time than by far than you spend in kindergarten to get your real estate license. And then someone has the license to advise you on how you should spend hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. But if I'm going to spend a multi-$100,000, I want someone to advise me that knows what they're doing. You want someone that's been trained. I will tell you that when you're dealing with real estate agents, with my team, with my firm, my agents are trained every single week. When I say intense training, there is no agent in this town, no agent in this market that probably has 1/10 of the training of an agent in this firm. Our agents are trained very, very well. And the reason is you're putting your trust in them. You're making a 30-year obligation to buy something. And just so y'all know, mortgage, the Latin for mortgage means pay until death. So you're making a 30-year commitment to buy something. I think the least we can do is put the commitment into educating ourselves to inform you and to advise you and to help you through the process so that when it's all said and done, you feel like you were taken care of. So choose your agent wisely. I hear a lot of people say, well, my cousin just got their license. My brother just got their license. You know, my friend, they're getting ready to get their license, and hundreds of thousands of dollars. So equate it to this. If you're going to invest money, if you are going to take every bit of money you made this year and invest it in an investment account, are you going to use someone, you're going to take a financial advisor that is getting ready to get their license or just got their license, or their full-time job is at McDonald's? Seriously, I have one right now. Full-time jobs at McDonald's and their part-time jobs real estate. Not who I'd advise to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars with, and that's what you're doing. Because once you sign on that line, that agent gets paid the commission, you're still stuck making that payment for the next 30 years. So choose your agent wisely. You know, choose an agent that has the education, that has the background, that is there to represent you, that has a broker there that's there to back them up. Find the agent that's going to represent you in your best interest. Because in the end, this is a little selfish, but it's your house. 30 years, it's a long time. Choose wisely. So this wraps up our 8 home buying secrets broken down. And this leads us into our next topic of the 5 things you need to ask an agent before you agree to hire them. So if you like this video, if you received some value, if you felt informed, be sure and give it 2 thumbs up. If you have any questions, be sure and comment them down below. Be sure to hit the subscribe and the bell notification so you'll be notified the next time we post a video. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.